Throughout both the original Glen A. Larson and Ronald D. reimagined Battlestar Galactica series, the colonial capital ship called the Galactica serves as a beacon of hope and humanity's last line of defense in their struggle to survive against the ever-advancing threat of the machine race of Cylons. In this video, I'd like to talk about a few of the notable events in the history of this iconic vessel across the various Battlestar Galactica installments. In the original 1978 series, the Galactica, which represented the colonial planet of Caprica, was one of several carriers classified as battlestars. These vessels began to be commissioned around the midway point of the Thousand-Yarn War and had since served to protect the citizens of the 12 colonies of man from the forces of the Cylon Empire. The series picks up toward the end of the war with the Cylons, where only a handful of battlestars remain in active service. The Galactica possessed formidable offensive capabilities through the use of its onboard laser weapons, missiles, and pulsar cannons. It also carried and was able to deploy squadrons of Starhound-class Vipers along with shuttlecrafts and armored ground vehicles. After the colonies suffered a devastating attack on their homeworlds, the Galactica was initially believed to be the only battlestar that remained to protect the survivors of the 12 colonies. These survivors were instructed by Commander Adama to take whatever spacefaring vessels were available and rendezvous with the Galactica. Afterwards, it was their mission to locate the lost home of the 13th tribe, Earth. During their journey, the Galactica comes across the battlestar Pegasus, which was previously believed to have been lost in a battle before the fall of the 12 colonies. The Galactica's rendezvous with the Pegasus was short-lived, however, as it vanished in a fierce conflict with the Cylons, with the ship destroying 2 base stars at point-blank range. After its disappearance, the remnants of the crew of the Pegasus joined forces with the Galactica, doubling its squadron count and increasing the number of available Vipers. In the spin-off series Galactica 1980, set an entire generation later, the Galactica, along with its fleet of civilian ships, finally discovered Earth. However, they found that the planet had not nearly advanced to the technological level needed to defend themselves from the Cylons. As such, the colonial warriors were deployed to covertly assist the scientists of Earth to help them to advance. At the start of the Ronald D. reimagined series, the Galactica is one of the oldest battlestars and the last of its kind still in service before the fall of the 12 colonies. While solidly built, due to its hasty construction during the early parts of the First Cylon War, the shipyard cut corners using inferior metals, with various ship components not being completed to spec. Shortly after it was first commissioned, the Galactica's primary duties included planetary defense and border patrol. The vessel had undergone its last major refit before the end of the First Cylon War, resulting in several changes to the layout of the hangar decks, infirmary, and CIC. It was also at this time that much of the Galactica's armor, Viper stacks, and dorsal primary batteries were removed. The Galactica would go on to participate in Operation Raptor Talon, a mission to attack an unnamed ice planet rumored to house a Cylon superweapon. This conflict resulted in a draw when it was announced that the Cylons had signed an armistice agreement, after which they mysteriously disappeared. After the armistice, Galactica was relegated to lighter intra-system duties, taking on Coast Guard roles involving the shipping sector and rarely ever using its FTL drives. As a relic of the First Cylon War, it was believed that keeping such a historically significant ship in service would be good PR for the colonial military. Eventually, however, due to its age, the Galactica became a burden to maintain. As a result, the decision was made to retire the old ship and decommission it from service. Instead of scrapping it, the colonial fleet chose to convert it into a war museum state-funded by the Ministry of Education. This conversion saw most of its munitions offloaded, as well as the cannibalization of several areas of the ship in order to facilitate the museum's functionality. At the time of its decommissioning ceremony, the Galactica possessed only one operational Viper Mark VII squadron, and just before the museum was set to open, the Cylons reappeared unexpectedly, breaking the armistice by attacking the colonial forces, bringing about the fall of the 12 colonies. The destruction of the colonial fleet was swiftly carried out due to the Cylons' abilities to hack the network systems of the newer colonial vessels. However, because the Galactica possessed non-networked computer systems, it remained as one of only 2 Battlestars to survive the Cylon assault. In its museum, the Galactica also held a squadron of Mark II Vipers on display. Due to the renewed hostility with the Cylons, these Mark IIs were brought back into service to defend the vessel against the enemy's forces. After the Galactica was able to jump away to resupply at an orbital refueling station and naval armory, it regained many of its offensive capabilities. It was then able to provide sufficient protection for a fleet of civilian ships harboring the survivors from the 12 colonies. Aside from continued protectionary duties, the Galactica also provided much of the fleet with recycled water and served as the hub for medical care. As the Galactica continued on its journey to find Earth, it oversaw operations to secure the fuel and supplies needed to care for the refugees of the colonies and to continue their trek. Several months into their exodus, the Galactica encountered the vastly superior Pegasus, which was the only other Battlestar to survive the fall of the 12 colonies. Together, these 2 ships landed decisive blows against the Cylon fleet, destroying a critical piece of their support structure known as a resurrection ship. Eventually, the fleet would discover a cold, barely habitable world called New Caprica, which they attempted to settle. During this time, the maintenance of the Galactica and standard military training regimen began to be neglected. After just 1 year, the Cylons jumped into orbit over New Caprica, forcing Admiral Adama to order the defense fleet to jump away along with several other civilian ships. A rescue plan was then formulated, culminating in the Galactica's execution of a risky maneuver to jump into New Caprica's upper atmosphere and launching the Vipers a Blue Squadron while simultaneously calculating a jump back into space. The Galactica then engaged with multiple Cylon base stars and continued to take heavy damage. Moments before its seemingly inevitable destruction, the Pegasus arrived and was able to draw the attention of the base stars long enough for Galactica's crew to bring its FTL drives back online, recover its fighters, and escape. This battle saw the destruction of the Pegasus, and once again the Galactica would remain as the colony's only line of defense. Repairs on the Galactica would continue as it journeyed through space, but many of its battle scars would remain. A silver lining in the loss of the Pegasus was a significant increase in the crew of the Galactica, as well as additional Viper and Raptor vessels and pilots. This, along with the destruction of several civilian ships, resulted in cramped conditions in living quarters, leading to the repurposing of the starboard hangar deck into a refugee camp. Eventually, the colonial fleet would encounter a faction of rebel Cylons with whom they formed an alliance. When the Galactica finally located Earth, the planet was found to be uninhabitable, having been ravaged by a prior nuclear holocaust. The Galactica then led the fleet away from Earth in search of a new home. Without access to any repair facilities, and due to its age and continued deterioration, a plan was then set in motion to repair the damaged parts of the ship with an organic Cylon resin from the rebel base star. The resin helped to slow the ship's deterioration, but it continued to degrade, having only a limited amount of jumps before it would be torn apart by the forces of FTL travel. Interestingly, the organic Cylon resin acted as a neural fiber network, allowing the Cylon Samuel Anders to interface with various ship systems. After coming to terms with Galactica's dire condition, Admiral Adama ordered it to be abandoned, having it stripped of all non-essential equipment. He then chose to commit the Galactica with a volunteer skeleton crew to what was thought to be a suicidal rescue mission in order to retrieve the Cylon-human hybrid girl, Hera Agathon. In this final mission, the Galactica would jump at point-blank range near a superstructure called the Colony, serving as the Cylon homeworld, which orbited a black hole. After jumping to this location, the Galactica launched its Vipers and Raptors before crashing into the Colony to provide a point of entry for assault teams. After a brief ceasefire, the Colony was hit with nuclear-tipped missiles, resulting in their fall toward the nearby black hole. Adama then ordered Starbuck to perform a blind jump, which Galactica successfully executed. the forces of FTL travel proved to break the vessel's back as it experienced a series of catastrophic failures across the entirety of its structure. This final jump, however, brought the Galactica within sublight range of a habitable planet, which they would also name Earth. After transferring their personnel and supplies to this new planet, the Galactica, along with the empty remains of the fleet, are then piloted directly into the system's star by Samuel Anders, bringing an end to the last surviving Battlestar. But I'd like to know what you think of the Battlestar Galactica. Are there any moments in this vessel's history that stand out as your favorite? Which model do you prefer, the original series or the reimagined version? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Battlestar Galactica and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. Thank you all so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.